Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel and welcome to a very late September wrap-up. Apologies. So, okay, a little bit of a, where have I been? Literally doing nothing. Okay, not nothing. At the start of October, I literally have not stopped reading. Like, my motivation to film and edit, mostly edit. I don't mind filming, it's the editing that kills me. But my motivation, absolutely zero. My motivation to read, I was reading a book a day. I work 3 days one week, 4 days the next week. And so on all of my days off, I have literally just been non-stop reading. And I'm like, I kept thinking, I was like, I should really film or edit. It's like, or I could continue reading this book. So that's where I've been. I've been reading so much in October, but I finally edited a video that I'm going to talk about a little later. I finally edited that and I'm obviously filming this. So I'm hoping to actually do more posting than usual to make up for it. So I'm hoping to like do either 2 or 3 videos for the rest of October. So September was Battle-a-thon, which is kind of why I want to talk about this, because obviously the goal of that was to try and read 5 stars. So I want to talk about the books that I read for it and also the Red Dragons one. A lot of these actually are already in vlogs, so I'm not going to talk about them for long, but there are some really good ones that I read that weren't in vlogs and I want to talk about them. So let's just get into it. So I read 9 books and the first one was The Serpent Shadow, which is the 3rd book in the King Chronicles series by Rick Riordan. So this is one of those vlogs that I was talking about a little earlier where I had it sitting there and just did not want to edit it, despite the fact I had however many days off. This is one of them. And I was actually going to just bin the vlog. I was going to just delete it. Emma basically was like, no, I wanted to know what your thoughts were completely on the series. I'm like, okay. So Emma has saved it from the bin. It will be with you one day. One day. When will that be? We'll see. So this is the 3rd and final book in the King Chronicles series. So this follows siblings, Carter and Sadie, and they are off with their father on Christmas Eve, and then they go to the British Museum and they basically, an explosion happens and they discover the world of Egyptian myths and the 2 of them have to save the world. And I had such a good time with this series. It is a 4-star book and as I said, I guess I will talk about it in more detail in that vlog. But as I said, I did overall really enjoy this series. Then the 2nd book, again, one I'm not really going to talk about for long because of a different reason though, and that is Grey Sister by Mark Lawrence. And this book, I gave it 3 stars. And I'm not going to talk about it too much because of the fact we have a live show. But if you didn't know, I am one of the co-hosts for the Backlist Book Club, which is Cassidy's book club. I think it was about the 2nd week of September that we had the live show. I can't exactly remember. We have a whole discussion. There's a spoiler-free section at the start, and then we get into spoilers. Full of things. So the 3rd and final book I'll be reading probably the 1st week of November, and the live show I think will be on the 5th. And number 2, there's really cool backlist merch. I do not have it yet. I do have it ordered, but it's really cool. You should check it out. And then I suppose I'll talk a little bit about the book. So Grey Sister is the 2nd book in the Book of the Ancestors trilogy, and it follows Nona, and she's about to be executed for killing a man, and then a woman comes along and takes her to this convent where she gets trained in all of the different aspects of being one of these nuns. So there's like fighting, but there's also like obviously religion and magic, and we follow Nona and kind of just her journey in general. And I liked the 2nd book kind of more and less than the 1st book. I think the 1st book did a really good job with some of the imagery. Like there were some scenes that were just incredibly written and so vivid. And I mean, I literally can't picture things in my head, but they stuck with me, like the idea of them. And I just did not get that at all in the 2nd book. And I just feel like a lot of it felt very middle book syndrome. But there were aspects of the story that I did enjoy more. There were some characters that I actually finally started to connect to and really started to enjoy, and some friendships that I started to enjoy, but then there was others that I didn't like as much as I did in the 1st book. So overall it was kind of like up and down and up and down. So it's roughly the same to me as the 1st book. So a 3 star. The 3rd book that I read was Witch King by Martha Wells, and so this one I'm not going to talk about because I have a vlog already up about this. So in that vlog I read Blood Over Brighthaven, Witch King, and Family Lore, which I'll talk about briefly in a second. And it's just 3 anticipated releases from 2023. And I go into full details about them. Obviously no spoilers, but I did give this 5 stars. I really, really loved it. It is 100% a character-driven story. So we follow Kai. He is a demon and he wakes up and he is imprisoned, and his friend is also in prison, and so he frees himself, he frees his friend, and then the two of them set off on a journey to find his friend's wife and also to try and figure out what actually happened to the two of them. But it really is just the two of them on a journey, kind of reliving the past while also like trying to find their friends and family. Like, that is what the plot is. It is about the characters. It is about the characters. And I thoroughly did enjoy this. I loved the world. I loved Martha Wells' writing, and I absolutely adore the characters. But I can definitely see why this is not a book for everyone. And I kind of go, as I said, I go into more details in that other vlog if you want it. Also included in that vlog was Family Lore by Elizabeth Acevedo, and I gave this 3 stars. So this is a generational story, and it follows the older generation, which is 4 sisters, and then we follow 2 of the next generation who are cousins, and they all seem to have some gifts. And one of them has a gift to sense when someone is going to die, and she is basically called for a living wake. And everyone is like, is she dying? Is someone else dying? And it kind of brings the family together. It's just a story about all of them, all of their difficulties, the relationships between them, how the relationship you have with one family member, how that affects the relationship you have with another. And I did enjoy it, but I just didn't love it. I thought there was too many characters. I think Elizabeth Acevedo was trying to cover too many topics, and it then just kind of felt like nothing really got touched on. And like, it is quite a short book. It was about halfway through before I actually started to feel like I had any sort of understanding of the characters, which you don't want to be 50% of the way in and only now being like, oh yeah, I think I get these characters. So yes, so a 3 star, a bit of a disappointment. So then the next one was a surprise. This was not on my TBR. The rest of these books were kind of like on my TBR, or I was planning to read them anyway, but this book, the audiobook was available from my library. I clicked, I'll take it as a loan, and I read it. And it was A Monster's Call by Patrick Ness, and I give it a 5 stars. And I'm pretty sure it's going to be on my top 10 of the year. Oh my god. I knew, like, this was, I think I put this on my, like, top 10 priority books to read in 2023. And I've just put it off. I've put it off for years. I read the Chaos Walking series by Patrick Ness, I think in, like, 2018, 2019. And I love that series. I haven't read it in a while. I've also read The Rest of Us Just Live Here, which I think I gave it 3 stars. And I've heard such incredible things about this book. And, like, obviously it makes everyone cry, and I'm like, oh, I don't know if I want to read that. But, like, you know, I was like, I have to read it. But it took a while for me to get the motivation, and I just was like, now's the time. And so I did. The audiobook is like 9 hours long. The narration was fantastic. And this story, it follows a boy, and there's a lot of things going on in his life, and he gets visited by a monster. And the monster tells him that he's going to tell him 3 stories, and then at the end of it, he has to tell the monster what his nightmare is about. I definitely did tear up, and then I also watched the movie, and that also destroyed me. The movie is a brilliant adaptation of it. You know, like, as soon as you start the story, you're like, oh, I know why people cry at the end of this. And, like, yes, that is why, but also it's not. It's such a brilliant and heartbreaking and extremely real exploration of, like, kind of like the bad feelings you have. You know, wanting to be strong, and like, people have it worse, and then you think, you know, oh, this is so bad for me, when other things are happening and other people have it worse, and then you feel terrible because you were thinking, you know, selfishly. And I think it's a really beautiful exploration of that, the whole concept. It was brilliantly done. I thought the writing was beautiful. As I said, the narration was fantastic, and I do really want to buy a physical copy to own and put on my bookshelf. And like, the characters, you really felt for them. They felt extremely real. All so well done, and I had such an amazing time. And as I said, it was absolutely a 5 star. And then book number 6 I read was Ashes of the Sun by Django Wexler, and I gave this 4 stars. So this follows 2 siblings. So we have Geyer and Maya, and Maya was taken by the Twilight Order when she was like 5 or something, and Geyer had to watch this happen. He got injured, and he has spent his whole life trying to basically join any sort of resistance to the Order. It's very much Star Wars kind of inspired, and I thoroughly enjoy that. And then we also have Maya's perspective, and she has obviously grown up in this Order. She doesn't see anything wrong with them. She thinks that they are doing what is best for everyone. Like, it was so interesting to see like their two different perspectives. They are both very, very stubborn in their point of views. Like, he refuses to think that Twilight Order can have a single ounce of goodness, which, like, in fairness, they are pretty bad, but like, he refuses to think that even for a second they can do the right thing, and she refuses to think that they can do a single thing wrong. The two of them on completely different paths, and like, you're waiting for that moment when they'll come together again, because like, you don't know what's going to happen. And that tension was so excellently done, and I really, really enjoyed this book. But there was a couple of things that kind of kept me back. So Geyer's point of view, like, I consistently enjoyed that. Like, I was always intrigued. Like, from the moment his chapter started, I was hooked until the end of his chapters. Whereas with Maya, it was so strange. I feel like her chapters my enjoyment always started lower with her chapters. They never immediately grip me. And then, like, as her chapters go on, really interesting stuff happens. And so but then they'd always nearly end on a cliffhanger. And then by the time we get back around to her, because then we'd like usually go back to Geyer, and I'd be like, oh yeah, I remember how much I love him. By the time we get back to Maya, I once again was kind of like, do I care? And then by the end of her chapter again, I'd be like, oh my god, this is so good. And then it would end. So yeah, so that was just like a weird pacing thing. I think it was mostly a me issue. Most people seem to prefer Maya's perspective. I did enjoy the characters. I enjoyed the side characters, and I enjoyed how kind of brutal it was at points. We were getting introduced to characters, and then like the next page they'd be killed, and I'm like, well, that was quick. Like, I definitely enjoyed those kind of like Star Wars moments, and yeah, and I really enjoyed the plot. As I said, kind of seeing the two of them having to rethink their opinions, but also like they are still very much like, they're like rethinking, but then they're like, no, I'm right. But overall, really solid time. And I'm a little bit nervous to continue the series because of how it ended. I'm afraid that the second book is going to be basically a repeat of the first book. I do want to continue, and I'm excited to see how this story will go, especially since I know how so many people love this. And so then the next 3 books, I'm also not going to talk about for long because, again, they're in a vlog. I feel like I just say it with me. So, the first book is Lobin T by Emma Carrick. This is the 3rd and final book in the Fork in the Road series. So I give this 5 stars. This is, yet again, anticipated releases part 2. It should be the video before this, but I'll leave a link down below anyway. And so this series follows Ren. She comes back to the city that she was born in, and she decides to pose as a long lost daughter of this noble house. Her plan was to secure herself a fortune for her and her sister, and then, you know, run off. In the first book, she finds herself getting dragged into the noble politics because the house that she is involved in is not doing well financially, and there are people that are kind of scheming against them. And she also finds herself getting dragged into the politics of the lower banks, as well as getting involved with this masked vigilante called the Rook. And as I said, I give this 5 stars. It was such a brilliant finale, and I do go into more details in my vlog, but I love these characters. I love the world. It is so incredibly detailed. They truly thought of everything in here, and I love that so much, because I think in a lot of fantasy books, and like, this isn't a problem, like, it's perfectly fine that that's the way it is. A lot of people, they have like their magic system and like a couple of like, political things, and then everything else is kind of like, we all just kind of assume it's like Earth. It's like a normal Earth as we know it, maybe, in the past. And while yes, this has like Venetian inspired stuff, they truly have thought of like all of the aspects of like society, family and bloodline work, and how the magic works, and all of this. Like, they have truly made their own world, and I love that so much. As I said, I do love the characters. I didn't like them that much in the first book. Like, I liked them, I didn't love them. In the second book, I just fell in love with them, and that absolutely continued in here. This book, I do think, is like faster than the other 2 because we have stuff happening all of the time, whereas the first 2 are kind of more like build up, something happens at the end, build up, something happens at the end. Whereas this one, we are constantly resolving plots, introducing new plots, resolving plots, and so it's a lot more constant movement in here. There was like a couple of things that like oh, I wish that this had happened, or oh, I wanted that to happen. But none of them that were like, oh my god, I can't believe they did that. No, none of that. I overall had a really, really good time, and as I said, give it a 5 stars. The next one, also included in the vlog, The Chalice of the Gods by Rick Riordan. This is the 6th book in the Percy Jackson and the Olympian series. This is the Waterstones edition. It is also signed. So this is kind of its own, I'm going to presume it's going to be a trilogy. He's announced a second book, but because it's 3 quests he has to do, I'm going to assume it's going to be like 3. So like this is kind of its own trilogy, but it is like first person Percy Jackson with Annabeth and Grover, which is very much like Percy Jackson and the Olympians. So it's technically book 6, but it's also kind of his own trilogy. But anyway, it is set after the Heroes of Olympus, but before the Trials of Apollo. This series, it follows Percy Jackson as he is trying to get college recommendation letters. So he has to go on 3 quests, and in this one, he has to go try and find the Chalice of the Gods, which has been lost / stolen. As I said, it's him, Annabeth and Grover as they go on a journey, and it's very much low stakes, adventure vibes, and it I absolutely adored it for that reason. Like there was no stakes in here, which I mean, I'm never afraid of Percy Jackson, anything happening to him, because it's Percy Jackson. Plus also he's in the Trials of Apollo, so like I know he's gonna be fine. But like it's such low stakes because like if something goes wrong, it's not really on him. But like it's Percy Jackson, he doesn't want anything bad to happen to anyone, so like he's gonna do it. It's very much like cozy adventure vibes, and I think such a wonderful part of this is the fact that it is not a travel across the world to do this and do that. It is very much, it's him, he's in New York, he's going to places, asking God's questions with his friends, and like he's coming home at the end of the day, he's going to school in the morning, and I think we get a lot more of Percy's character through that, because like obviously we always get like, you know, in the summer, hero Percy is here, and we kind of see what he's like all year round, and we also see a bit more of his relationship with his mother and Paul, and we see just how much he loves Annabeth Chase. I think Rick Riordan, like he really, when he wrote this book, he was like, I know that there's going to be a load of like 20-year-olds or whatever that are reading this book that I'm technically writing for kids. So he like basically wrote a story that was about the fact that it's okay to grow up. I think it was really sweet, and it talked a lot about like those figures of like growing up and like finishing high school and finishing this and doing, and you know, like it's okay. And I thought that was really sweet. And yeah, so that was book number 8. Number 9, I cannot show you because I was hoping that while I was filming this video, it would arrive, but it is The Fragile Threads of Power by V. Schwab. I still do not have a single copy of this book. I'm losing my mind. So I gave this a 4 stars, which we'll get into that in a minute. Number 1, I have a book. I'm gonna have 4 copies of this book, which I gave it 4 stars. Which we're not gonna talk about it because I've ordered the Luma Crate one. I've ordered the Owl Crate ones, which in fairness they did say like October, November shipping, but like so like I knew those. The Waterstones one, that was delayed, and then it is now, what day am I filming this? The 17th, I think? It's either the 16th or the 17th, I'm not sure. 17th. It is the 17th. It is supposed to be out for delivery today. Will I get it? We'll see. And then on Thursday, so in 2 days time, on the 19th, I'm going to Dublin, and I will be getting a signed copy because I bought a ticket to the event. It's been out for nearly a month and I still do not have a single book copy of it. I read it on SCRIBD. It's on SCRIBD if anyone's interested. Anyway, so this is long-awaited start of a new series set in the same world of Shades of Magic. It's set 7 years after the original series. I liked it. I didn't love it. It's my 2nd highest 4-star of the year. But I'm kind of over it. Like I was, if you watch the vlog, I was like this close to some sort of breakdown, I think. And then I went to sleep, and then I woke up the next morning and was like, you're dramatic. Which is true. I think basically what I can narrow this down to is V. Schwab has always said that their books have slow starts. And I have never believed V. Schwab when they said this, because I've never found that, because I am always immediately either in love or intrigued about the characters that she writes, as well as like the world and the synopsis and all of this. So like I've never felt it because like when I started, you know, Shades of Magic, I was so intrigued by Kel and these 4 Londons. And so like while, yeah, the plot didn't start for however long, I was so intrigued by this character and his magic coat and this world and the synopsis that you were telling me of these 4 different Londons that I didn't care because I was so intrigued that I just kept turning the pages. Savage Song, I immediately fell in love with August and I was so intrigued about how monsters are created. And same with Vicious, like there's this death, you know, death gives you superpowers and these 2 characters, they're kind of messed up. And so like, as I said, yes, the plot doesn't start for however long in all of those series, but I've never felt them being slow because I'm always instantly hooked. Whereas in this one, because I already know these characters, I'm like, yeah, I know you. I'm not intrigued by you. And the world also doesn't intrigue me. I know this world. And so you're just the first like 40%. Like I was just, felt like I was, you know, showing me these characters. Like, yeah, there was a couple of new characters. I was like, yeah, they seem cool. They seem interesting. But then when we got to the 40% and like things really started happening, I really started to love the characters and all of this. Then I started to really love the book. And so I think basically the bottom line, why I give this a 4 star is this is the first time I've ever actually experienced, oh yeah, Vicky Schwab does write slow starts in her books. So yes, so at least I know that going into the next book, manage my expectations. So yes, but I did overall really enjoy it. As I said, the first 40% was like a 4 star and then the last 60% was like a 5 star, but it was like a high enough 5 star for me to like be like, okay, 5 star. So it was like almost there, but not quite. So yes. So those are the 9 books that I read. And yeah, so thank you guys so much for watching. I do hope you enjoyed. If you did, subscribe and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye.